It might sound strange for me to talk in English, but due to the nature of the audience here and a significant number of strangers, I'm going to present this paper in English. The title of my paper is System for Positioning and Resuming Location-Bound Messages, which probably isn't as descriptive as I and probably you want to be, but hopefully you'll get some sense of what it actually is. So what does this system or application is doing is basically following the next picking process. So for example, if I reach some interesting location which I really like and I'm interested in the history of that place to see how the other people experience that particular location, I can use this system to see what did other users put as their impressions on that location and also save my impressions so other people can also see how I was experiencing that place. It is an application written for the Windows Phone platform, which is a smartphone operating system, which came to the market slightly more than 2 years ago, and at this moment it is the third most popular operating system in the world. For the introduction, I'm going to explain some importance of geolocation services, especially in the use of these applications which are built for the smartphone platforms. And pretty much every decision that we make in daily life is based on our current position in space. So for example, if we want to, go to buy something, we are going to think about places which are close to us. So if I want to get a drink, I'm going to the nearest store close to me and not I'm going, for example, to New York to get a drink. So even the smallest of these decisions are influenced by our position in space, and modern software also should have that component, so the applications could become even more relevant and important to us. As the benefit of location awareness of these applications is in more relevant data and services, which is pretty much what I explained before. If I take a shopping example, if I want to shop, for example, on Jakorina, I am interested in all the stores which are located on Jakorina, not somewhere else. So if I have an application which is location aware, she's going to give me all the stores which are close to me, not far away from me, and places who are not interested in that particular moment. Also, it enables higher precision, and all that together gives a result in improved simplicity, activity, and usability of application. There is a lot of examples in modern application software which actually does that. So in this shopping example, there are applications which can just on one single click give me the list of all the stores which are close to me. And with that, I don't have to deal with the stores myself. I don't have to filter them on base location. And with just one click, I can do what I actually want. If I had to do that thing manually, I would probably give up and not even use the application. So that's the result. When developing this system, there were a couple of problems which had to be solved. And the most obvious of them, the first one, is actually acquiring geolocation data. On the Windows Phone platform, that is done in kind of specific way through the geolocation services and API, which doesn't reveal how you actually are getting those geolocation data, but we do know that is some kind of combination of those three methods. So GPS, cellular, and Wi-Fi triangulation. In which exact way the system is doing that is not known, but there is a slight way that you can influence this process, and I'm going to talk about that a little later. But even when we do get those data, we have to give them some meaning, because on their own they don't mean that much, because they are just numerical values for geographical altitude, latitude, and longitude. So the process which transforms these geolocation data into data which are understandable and important to us, like address, is called reverse geocoding, and the process opposite of it is of course called geocoding. There are a number of online services which are doing the exact same thing, and all you have to all you have to do is to call these services and pass them the data so they can return you what the actual address or something like that. Also, we can display those data in a visual manner on the map, so we have to chart the map and display the exact location on the map. Also, the final feature is enabling writing and reading those messages, so there should be some way to handle that, and I'm also going to explain that later. When it comes to software implementation, all of this was done in C# programming language, which is combined with XAML framework, which is used to write the user interface for the application, and C# is used to write the programming logic. Of course, all of that is done with the help of Windows Phone SDK and written in Visual Studio 2010. When it comes to development for the Windows Phone platform, it is pretty much similar to Silverlight platform. So it's kind of toned down. Silverlight, which is not intended for web but for smartphone OS. For the database, I was using the MS SQL Server, and the web services are written in Windows Communication Foundation framework. When it comes to the actual geolocation API, it is encapsulated into system.device.location namespace, which have to be referenced in application, so you could get access to the geo-coordinate watcher class, whose instance is the one you are actually using to get and work the data. When instancing this class, making the object, you have to pass the following value or attribute: geo-position accuracy, which is actually that way I was mentioning about influencing the way how the system acquires the data. So you can pass 3 values, and those are low, medium, and high. And if you pass the, for example, high value, that means that you are asking for the system to give you the most precise data it can possibly give you. So that means that system is going to use GPS, which is the most precise way of obtaining geolocation data. But we all know when using GPS, it also requires the most time and the most energy. So this is pretty much the resource-hungry way, and when we don't need that much precision, we are going to pass medium or low values, which is going to make the system to use the other 2 methods, which are Wi-Fi and cellular triangulation, to give you those data. Also, there is this one attribute, movement threshold, which is a handy way of battling the deficiencies of the GPS system itself, because we know it is not that precise. And they are, for example, when you are just standing and not moving, the system can pretty much change its value from second to second. So if you want to combat that, you are going to set this movement threshold to some value, for example 10, which means that every 10 meters the user moves, the system is going to refresh the data. So you get some, which is the way you can fix actually the deficiencies of the GPS system. But the most important thing are those following events, which are called status change and position change. Status change events fires up whenever the system changes state. So, for example, once it gets into status of acquiring data, or stops acquiring data, or it is malfunctioning or can't get the data, this event fires up, and it is important to handle those events so the user experience is the best possible. But even more important event is position change event, which fires up whenever the user changes its position. And through this event, you are basically writing a majority of the programming logic for handling geolocation data. And finally, when it comes to charting the maps, it is done through the Bing map control, which is incorporated into Windows Phone SDK. But in order to use it, you have to get the key, which can be found on Bing Maps website, and once you pass that key to the credentials provider attribute of instance of Bing Maps, you can use the maps. And finally, once you have a map, you have to display the exact location where the user is, and that is done through the instance of touchpin class, which is like an eagle on the map, which displays your position, and you just have to pass those geolocation data from the geo-coordinate watcher to the touchpin instance. For the conclusion, I have to say that the code itself isn't actually portable because it is written in a specific framework, but the entire idea can be executed in pretty much every smartphone platform. So it can be ported to other platforms, and a lot of additional features can be incorporated into the system, which I actually planned on doing, but didn't have enough time. For example, the social media integration, which is a must-have integration pretty much every modern application, can be easily done. And apart from those textual things for the impressions I was speaking before, we can add photos and videos so that so your impression of the current place can be even more expressive, and users which are viewing those impressions later can have a better sense of how you experience that location. Also, you can use this to, I don't know, map some events and show people what was that location used for which kind of events, and pretty much everything what happened on that particular location. And finally, one interesting feature can be implemented, so it enables scanning and exploring, so it can be really useful exploring too, suitable for, I don't know, travelers who love to explore places, and this can give them additional layer of data and information which they couldn't access previously. So even though you can get maps and stuff like that, it's easy, but you can't actually see how people experience that location, which are probably the most important feedback about some location in PL. And that would be it. Any questions?
Is there any difference between this idea and like Foursquare or some similar services?
Yeah, it is. Foursquare is probably the most popular application which uses location data, but Foursquare is used for checking in application and displaying that you are actually here. But the point of my idea is to leave your impression on that place, so other people, when they come to that place, can have like this virtual wall of impressions where they can see how people previously experienced that location. So it's some kind of augmented reality thing. Anything else?
Imate li još pitanja? Ako nemate, ja bih se zahvalio.